Hello, I am Matt, and this is Matt Reflects. It's January 3rd, 2026. I wasn't planning on doing any videos this morning, but I guess this is something I can do this morning is talk about Venezuela. Overnight, the President of the United States authorized and attacked Venezuela and removed the Venezuelan president. Brought him back to the United States to stand trial. I'm old enough to remember when we did stuff like this in Iraq. I was highly supportive of the idea. I was like, get that Saddam Hussein out of the freaking place. He's a piece of crap. And Maduro's the same way, really, honestly. He's an illegitimate president. He did not win the election. He took the office, at least for all intents and purposes, and what we know he did. Still not a good thing. We do not need to start another war. You know, people think, oh, maybe this will be a great thing and new leadership will come in. Well, yes, there are people celebrating in the streets over in Caracas, and there were in Baghdad in Iraq back in the early 2000s after we invaded. There's still the rest of Maduro's government, and does this bode well for the United States in the long run? No, it didn't with Iraq, because we spent billions and billions of dollars attempting to stabilize Iraq. In the time, we ended up having a regime in Iraq that wasn't necessarily all that friendly to us anyway. So let's look, why did we go into there? Well, we've listened to Trump talk about this for a while. He is all about regime change in Venezuela. They have a leftist president, and left, right don't really matter. He states it's because of the drugs coming over. Well, there's plenty of drugs coming over, but let's be honest. How many drugs do we make here in the United States and ship out to other places? There's plenty of them. Heck, in the area where I live, right around southwestern Virginia, we have tons of people that make drugs, including a lot of methamphetamines. If those drugs make their way to Europe, does that mean that the Europeans should be able to bomb the United States, bomb Washington D.C., and take our president? Of course, none of us would be okay with that. I mean, I guess there's probably some that would, but we shouldn't be walking into other countries because we don't necessarily like their policy. If we want to fight the war on drugs, we need to do so from our own shores, and part of that is treatments. If we're not doing treatment options that help the people who are addicted to these drugs, we're never going to stop the drugs. Never. So we're going to talk fentanyl. Let's talk about fentanyl for a second. Let's think about that. We're just trading it anyway for legal addiction that's no different. There's a company in the town that I live in. It's a drug rehab center. I worked there, believing that I was helping these folks. What did we do? We brought them in when they were addicted to fentanyl, heroin, all this, and we put them on what they call MAT, M-A-T. That treatment basically is just sticking them on methadone and sending them to a clinic. So this person who is addicted to fentanyl on the streets, or heroin on the streets, or any other opiate derivative, now went to a clinic and paid for it. So all it is just shifting the power from one basically narco terrorist to another narco-terrorist, because the way our drug companies operate in this are like narco-terrorists, let's be honest. Go ahead and watch the show Dope Sick if you want to start looking at how terrible our own companies have been and been a part of this. But anyway, neither here nor there. The problem that we're seeing is we can walk in and take out any leader. The amount of drugs, we kept talking about drug boats. I keep hearing it from left, right. I don't really give a crap what side. They're bringing the drugs in the United States. Well, these little tiny drug boats that we were bombing off Venezuela, I'm pretty sure most of these people have never looked at a map that talk about them bringing them in the United States via these little boats. It takes an awful lot of fuel to go the distance from the shores of Venezuela to United States proper, even if you're going to Texas. Texas, Florida, or any other Gulf state will require an awful lot of fuel coming from Venezuela. So we've seen pictures of the drug boats, supposed drug boats anyway. Those boats could not have really held the fuel plus the drugs. Kind of thinking about that. So yeah, if there was enough fuel, there probably wasn't enough drugs. Now, were they probably moving drugs? Sure. They weren't moving them to the United States, or they were moving them to other areas. And was it Maduro himself part of it? Well, does it really matter? Our president just gave freedom to the former leader of Honduras, who was a drug kingpin. So it's not about freaking drugs. But one thing that we can talk about that it probably is about, and this leads right back to George Bush and Iraq: oil. Venezuela has the largest proven reserves of oil on the planet. Of course it's over oil, it's over minerals, it's over everything. Look at everybody he's trying to, that he wants to attack. Venezuela, oil and minerals. Look at Greenland, minerals. Look at Canada, oil and minerals. Look at Nigeria, minerals. Seems to be that maybe all the attacks or the places that we are threatening to attack all seem to have oil or minerals or something that we want. So anyway, like Trump, don't like Trump. I personally don't care for Trump, never have, long before his presidency. And I've supported some of the stuff he's done during his first administration, when they called the executive action creating a national crisis on opiates. I was 100% behind him. I worked in it during that time. And I want to see the trouble with drugs change. But the best way to do it is at home. Not necessarily bombing other countries, not necessarily regime change. This whole thing that happened overnight will cost us a lot more than we can think of right now. Partially because it's going to be looked at worldwide as illegal. We've already have problems that we need to look at when it comes to Venezuela for a world. Those bombings of the drug boats, the double tapping that Hegseth did, those are going to be looked at in The Hague as war crimes. Actually, there's already been people who have petitioned The Hague to bring war crime charges against the United States. Now, we are not signatories, so no, nothing's going to happen within that. It's not like all of a sudden Trump's going to be on trial for war crimes or Hegseth or any of it. But what can happen is these folks, when they're traveling abroad, could get an Interpol warrant against them. Pete Hegseth could be on the other side of the planet, and all of a sudden, a country who wants a little bit of a one-up on the United States may end up picking him up, taking him, and delivering him to The Hague. That would be legal at that point. Here's the thing. We're likely to see petitions almost immediately to The Hague from Venezuelan people. Many who died. I mean, go look at the videos for yourself on online of the tracer fire and the explosions and all the other stuff when the U.S. military went into Venezuela. So there's going to be backlash that is not going to be good for the United States. It's not going to fix the problems that we're talking about when it comes to the drugs. Is it even going to get us those minerals? Will the vice president of Venezuela, who is by Constitution now going to become the president, she is part of the same regime, will they work with us? Or are they going to double down on their spending for military, on trying to figure out ways to defend themselves against the U.S. if we try and go further? Yes, we have the power to go in and take them out. We can take them all out. We've got the power. One thing that we're not thinking about probably, look at what happened to the Russians in Ukraine. Think about that a little bit. Yes, Russia has some vastly outdated equipment, but if it came down to us having to actually go street to street in that nation, I don't think it'll happen. But if it did, we are in for a lot of losses, because every country in the world has watched what President Zelensky has done in Ukraine, has watched what has happened to the Russian military, which was considered one of the best militaries in the world. They still have the largest amount of nuclear weapons in the world. I don't think we learned anything, did we? If our folks go in there, the Venezuelans, maybe some will be happy to see us. Maybe. Maybe some won't. Maybe. But if they decide they're not going to allow us into their land, we're in for a battle. And it's not going to be good for our people. It's not going to be good for the United States. It's not going to be good for our economy. And it's not going to be good for our people. And forget Trump with it wanting to have the freaking peace prize. You're not going to get a peace prize by bombing another country, or two, or three, or however many he's going to decide he's going to bomb. Come on, dude. Trump, you promised to focus at home. You told us that you wanted an America First agenda. Let's focus on our people. If you really want America First, focus on helping the U.S. citizens. Let's get more rehab facilities. Let's not get these drug addicts stuck on methadone. Let's work on getting them off of the drugs. Let's work on why people end up moving towards drugs in the first place. I've never once heard in my life, and I'm sure that anybody listening to this never once heard in their lives, I want to be an addict when I grow up. I want to be a junkie when I grow up. Nobody says that. There are circumstances that lead people to a drug addiction. Oftentimes it's dual diagnosis, so there's some sort of mental health issues that come along with drug addiction. That's going to be the majority of it. Yes, there is some that may not be mental health related completely. And those are going to be some of your folks that were given way too many opiates for pain-related issues that they have, some sort of degenerative disc disease, major accidents, things where they had catastrophic damage to their body that led to severe pain. Now, of course, opiates are not really what you need for that in most cases anyway, because they're not highly effective to rooting out the problems on why you have pain in the first place. Most of the time that's going to be due to some sort of inflammatory process. Just a background, I work in the medical world. I'm not a doctor, but I work in the medical world. So Trump, focus on the people. You said that's who you kept talking about. I mean, yeah, you don't really want to do anything for the people that are on the left, just the people on the right, but still focus on the people. If you're going to help America, don't put us in a position where we're creating new enemies, more enemies that make our homeland less safe. You know, it was harder for the Iraqis to come and bomb us. Obviously, Al-Qaeda did in the early 2000s, and I think a lot of people have already forgot about that. Maybe they never knew why Al-Qaeda came after us in the first place. It was our policies in the Middle East. It was our non-stop backing of Israel and anything that they did. It was our policies of installing dictatorships. How about Saddam Hussein in the first place was installed by us. He was the leader we wanted in there. It was constantly us supporting the worst of their leadership, including to this day the Saudi Arabians. And their kingdom, which still is absolutely brutal on their own people. The support of governments and government entities that harm the people at the bottom led to Al-Qaeda's rise. People like Osama bin Laden thought of themselves as freedom fighters. We even propped them up when they were fighting the Soviets over in Afghanistan. We helped give them everything that they needed in which to build their military advantages as terrorists. I only mention any of this right now is solidly because the people of Venezuela, some of them are going to be happier than ever. Some of them are not. And some of them are going to feel like they need to do something. And violence begets violence. And they're going to feel like big evil United States, this is what they're going to think, came into our nation and took our leader. Just think of how Americans would feel if somebody came in and took our leader. You don't have to like Trump. You don't have to like our last president, Biden, or Trump in the first, or Obama, or Bush, or Clinton, or Bush. We can go back all the way. You don't have to like any of those leaders. We would not have accepted or been okay with a foreign nation walking into our land and taking our leader, whether we liked him or not. Because that's our right to take out our leadership or to change our leadership. It's part of the whole American thing, right? We went to war against Britain for freedom 250 years ago this year. Trump, do the right thing, man. Take care of your people. That's what you kept talking about. You kept talking about, like, making sure that we had good opportunities. Economy. Hey, my stock's fine. But not so much when I go to the grocery store. But we certainly do not need to be bombing Nigeria. We certainly do not need to be bombing Venezuela. And I fear that soon we're going to see actions, and we don't, heck, forgot about it. We definitely don't need to be bombing Iran either. We've already done that in this administration, so that was a last year thing. Now we're threatening to do it again. If the Iranians go after the protesters, which is kind of interesting since we sent our own military in against our own protesters, so that kind of makes no sense to me. Why would we provide support to protesters in another nation when we're not accepting of our own protests in the United States? But that's, I'd say, Trump, do the right thing. Help us. Let's not make us pay billions in tariffs. I know you won't. People voted you in originally the first time because you said you were not part of the swamp. I propose that wasn't the case anyway because you were part of Wall Street, right? You're part of the business elite. The business elite is the swamp. It wasn't Pelosi. It wasn't freaking George Bush Jr., Clintons. They were a swamp in a whole different way because every politician is pretty much. The real swamp are the people that bought the politicians. Those are the billionaires and the trillionaires. Those are the people who run Wall Street. That's the actual swamp. And the American people, they didn't get it. They always want a businessman. And I understand that. I do too. But I want Joe from down the road who owns his own farm. I want smaller government. I like the idea of states' rights. I'm not sure you like the idea of states' rights, but I do. Hey, I support your right. I support the Second Amendment and the First Amendment and all the other amendments in the Constitution. How about that? I support that Constitution. Beautiful document. Now that I've gotten on my rants, I've talked all this. This was episode 2. Or episode 3 rather. Last night I worked on episode 2. I'm sure it sounds like crud. I'm gonna post it anyway. I've never done an unboxing. This is me doing this. This is new for me anyhow. I'm not very in on doing YouTube videos and everything, but this is the beginning of something different. As I mentioned in my welcoming video, I need my way to get out my thoughts, and this is a way to do it. It's not, I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm both in many ways. There's all my life pretty much I've been one of the conservatives in my house. In a very liberal home, but I'm not sure I like what's going on at all in the world, because people aren't just right or left. freedom doesn't last when somebody decides that only the people on the right or only the people on the left should have freedom. Freedom lasts when we realize that we need both the people on the right and the people on the left. Well, I'm Matt, and this is Matt Reflects. Please like and subscribe. Share my videos. Hopefully we'll start building some momentum, and this video was never anything that I intended to do this morning, but it's done now, and I'm sure that I'll be coming back onto this topic in the future because I've paid attention to what we've done. I lived through all of the wars in the Middle East with Iraq and Afghanistan, and I watched what happened with regime changes in Syria, and now there's a terrorist running Syria, which we seem to love. I watched the differences we've done in the past, and yes, we probably could have went in and removed Milosevic back when Clinton was bombing to stop the ethnic cleansing of Albanians. We could have done the same thing in Bush Sr. when we were pushing Iraq out of Kuwait. I remember that too. For any of you who are younger, who are like gung-ho about what we did in Venezuela, please go back through history. Don't just read like a whitewashed history that shows like yay for the United States. Just look at history in general. When we do things like this, it generally doesn't turn out any better than if we did nothing at all. Oftentimes people die that shouldn't have died. Freedom doesn't necessarily come to these nations. Honestly, freedom for those people have to come from those people. Can we provide support as a nation? Yeah, we could. But it's not up to us to be the ones that change the regime. That needs to be the people themselves. Again, I'm Matt. This is Matt Reflects. Like, subscribe, share the files, and see you again.